Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education Special Board Meeting on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. at the Grayslake Middle School. I need a call to order and a roll call, please.
Weedman? Mack? Braden? Here. LaCroix?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Nash?
Here.
Strack?
Here.
Okay, that gives us a quorum. Next, I'm looking for approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second. Miller?
Aye.
Strack?
Aye.
Mack?
Aye.
Weedman?
Aye.
Braden?
Aye.
LaCroix?
Aye.
Nash?
Aye.
Okay, first item on our agenda today is action items, is a motion to approve the hybrid and remote learning plan. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Bookman, would you like to
Yeah.
give an overview of what you've been working on in the last week?
Absolutely, happy to. So I'm going to review a few changes to the plan, and then Mr. Lewis and I would like to also address some concerns and questions that we've been receiving over the past week. And I want to start with the Safe Center. Very, very pleased to let you know that indeed we have come up with a way to continue supporting our students in the Safe Center. And very briefly, it is a move from Prairie View, where the students currently are in large spaces, into smaller spaces, classrooms actually over at Frederick. We know that we will only need to have roughly half of the Safe Center students on site at any one time, as long as the students are enrolled in hybrid learning, not remote learning. And therefore, we will be requiring any of the students who are in the Safe Center to be in hybrid learning. That will be one of the qualification, so that we don't have to support them Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on site, because we do have a space concern. So all of those students will be supported over at Frederick. Wednesdays, we also will be able to support our Safe Center students, and we're working out some details as to what that will look like. But I can tell you at the end of this week, assuming that we're moving forward with this plan, if the board does vote this plan forward, we'll be in touch with all of our Safe Center families to talk with them about next steps. So that's information about the Safe Center. Okay, moving on. We made an adjustment to the early childhood hybrid schedule because our early childhood students in the former plan, we had early childhood students on site over at Prairie View on Wednesday. We wanted to pull those students off of Prairie View on Wednesdays so that when Prairie View could have the deep clean that other schools are getting on Wednesdays. So we moved that fourth day for early childhood to Fridays. So that was an easy change. The transition schedule for from remote to a hybrid plan was initially in the plan and has been pulled out of the plan, as there were board members who described a desire to be able to vote on those two topics separately. First voting on the plan, and then looking at the schedule for how to get back on site separately. Excuse me, so that's a change. And then finally, a simple change that is us just following the directives of the county. If you look in the plan at the metrics section, Lake County Department of Health has taken one of the metrics off of their metrics scale. That was the metric that had to do with COVID-like hospital admissions. They've actually stopped reporting on it entirely, or have stopped using it as one of the metrics that school districts should use, and so we took that off of our plan as well. So those are the those are the changes that we made to our plan. But I also wanted to move in to talk about some of the concerns that were brought to us. And I've been thinking about how to pose this to you. We're going to talk in a moment about the potential of teacher changes, as well as the model that we are proposing, including what it looks like in the classroom for students. And I want to start by talking about it like this. People who know me well know that I tend to really look at the bright side of things and imagine the best case scenario. I have a brother-in-law who says that I am the most optimistic person he knows, and I do not think he always means that to be a compliment. But you know, typically I really do describe to people what will happen in a very positive way. In the case of creating this plan, however, we wanted people to very clearly see what school would be like. And we wanted people to very clearly understand that school, on-site school, will not be the way it was last January before the pandemic hit. That it's not possible, as much as we want it to be, it's not possible to have school the same way that we did last winter, last fall. And so there were a few things that we needed to talk about in the plan. And it looks to me as though there are many people who have looked at a few things regarding that plan and have really focused on them. And so we wanted to talk about them a little bit tonight to help people pull away from that a little bit if possible. So one of them is about teacher changes. We told you that it is possible that students would have to change teachers. And we told you that because it is true. It is possible that some students will have to change teachers. Nobody wants that to happen, and we're working very hard to avoid that as much as possible. But we were being open and honest with you about that. We didn't want that for a child to have to change a teacher and for a family to say, we never knew that that could happen. That stated, we're working very hard to avoid it whenever possible. And then there's the matter of what it looks like in classrooms and students using their Chromebooks with their headphones on. That really is meant to be a starting place, a way for our teachers who are used to teaching on the Google Meet right now, a way for them to have an entry into the classroom with their students. I'm going to pause there and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Lewis to talk more about that.
So thank you. We've been talking about that a lot this week to figure out how we can share that more clearly. So one of the things we have decided is about using Google Meets. And along with using Google Classroom and Seesaw, and that really is to help with the organizational part. The idea of all the assignments are there, all the things are available. Yes, the on-site kids will have some paper and pencil things to do instead of always using the computer. And yes, we will want the teacher to, like they've always done, have the schedule on the board so that the on-site kids can see that. But we also need to have that in Google Classroom and in Seesaw. And so we do want every class or every period to begin with some kind of an opener. So the teacher will explain what's going to happen today, to give an overview of the day. And so those are times that the students on site may be able to close their Chromebook and take off their headphones and just listen to the teacher at the front of the room. But if the class goes into a discussion mode, we're wanting all of the students on site to hear the students remotely, and the remote kids to get to hear the kids on site. That's why the headphones would be important, so they can hear and communicate along the way. To have that connection. We don't want the remote kids not to have a connection to the on-site kids. We want to have that opportunity. And so then the teacher will likely move into direct instruction. Again, the students on site may be able to remove the headphone and just listen to the teacher. Although they'll be near the computer screen, they still should be able to hear the teacher in the classroom effectively without having it. Some kids may like the noise canceling or the extra ability to hear a little bit more clearly. Those are all options. So these are all things that we are going to try. We're going to figure out what's going to work best. And so then again, when we get into small groups, which the teachers are very happy that the Google Enterprise is rolling out, and we have the ability to do small groups much more easily, more effectively with Google Meets now. that we do want the remote kids and the on-site kids to eventually be in groups together. So they are going to need to communicate and talk. There are absolutely times that the on-site kids will just be in a group by themselves with other on-site kids. And maybe the remote kids will be in groups with other remote kids at times. But we do want that interaction of the whole class community. When the teacher gets done with guided practice or with the discussion part or fully understanding what the students need to do, that will be work time. So the on-site kids will have work time. They might be doing things paper, pencil. They might be doing things in Google. They might be whatever the assignment is doing. So they'll have some options of closing the computer, using the computer, taking off headphones, all those kind of things. So we wanted to make sure that we were addressing some of those nuances. And we were reflecting that just as the beginning of this school year, our teachers who have been doing an amazing and incredible job, the things they were doing at the beginning of the year have changed and morphed and grown throughout all this time. They've learned how things work better. They've learned some new techniques. They've figured out how to do things. They're going to do the same thing with this program, with this way too. So yes, we're going to start with the Google Meet. It's the beginning. And then hopefully we can continue to grow, change, explore new ways to have students to work. Hopefully removing headphones, removing the Chromebooks, but that's our starting point. And we felt like that was important for teachers to have that safety and security to start. And then our teachers are amazing. They're going to figure out new ways to do different ways of grouping, different ways for instruction, different ways to engage students. Still, though, following all of those guidelines that we're needing to follow about social distancing and masks and all those kind of things. So we just wanted to share a little bit. Did I miss anything?
No, no.
No?
You didn't, thank you. But I just wanted to add that if the board approves this plan, well, then then we go back into collaborative problem-solving mode. And we're poised for tomorrow to send a thought exchange question out to our staff to ask, what support do you need so that we can all work together to make this next step more successful? It's written in a little bit more of an elegant way than that. I don't have it written in front of me right now, but that's the concept. We'll be sending that out to our staff, working through themes that they bring back to us, and then we will together understand, is it some technologies, because we have been having some conversations about some potential additions of some technology pieces, small ones. Is it professional development? Is it time? Time is a biggie, and by the way, we do expect that we'll be using 1 or 2 of our remote learning planning days that we are given by the state between the vote of the board and the onset of hybrid learning, so that our teachers do have time to get into their classrooms, to get things set up, to problem solve together, to do some practicing, all of that. So that's where we are today, and I'm eager to find out where we'll be tomorrow. That's it.
Okay, real quick, I'll just figured give each board member a chance to ask any quick questions if you have any. So I'll start with Christine.
I do have some questions, but I'd like a little time to reorganize them in my mind, so I'm going to pass, but can you come back to me, please? Thanks.
Tamika?
Thank you, Mr. Weedman. Mr. Lewis, you raised a point in regards to on-site children having the opportunity to close their Chromebooks and go into paper pencil mode. Wondering if there would be an opportunity for the remote students to also be able to have that same break where potentially parents could maybe pick up classroom materials at the beginning of the week so that those remote students could have that same opportunity.
So just like we did at the beginning of the year for trimester 1, it is my thought, we haven't planned it yet though, but my thought is that we'll have another material pickup. And so teams would be able to put some things together that they think would be necessary or helpful So those might be packets or documents or tools to use of paper and pencil things for kids at home. The good thing for the on-site kids is if there's something they need on their remote day, the teacher could pass them out quickly. But we are hoping, that would be my guess. I'll be honest, that has not yet been on our radar, but we've always said the first pickup was just through trimester 1. And then we assumed we'd have another one in November. So that's always been the thought or plan for all those kind of things. And so the whole idea too is when the teacher announces what the assignments are and kids know what they can do, what they need to do, then I'm okay if the kids take a break, from the computer or such, as long as they know what time, especially at the middle school, what time their next period starts, so that they know. And if the student knows what the assignment is and when it's due and what they need to do to turn it in, and they also know how to get a hold of the teacher later in the day or that week during office hours if they need extra support. I want to make sure that all those safety nets are in place. The kids aren't just, okay, go do your work. They know how they can get some help along the way too. Through Go Guardian, they're also able to connect with teachers to ask questions and such. So many of our middle school teachers are doing, specifically middle school, are using that very regularly. I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Okay.
I hope that answered the question, or?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we're ensuring, that equities, recognizing that some families may desire to return to in-person, but for medical reasons, it just may not be feasible at this time, and making sure that we have that same opportunity for children in that remote setting to have those purposeful breaks from the computers as well. Thank you. And then in terms of the technology that the administration is looking into, because I know one of the concerns that we've heard from our teacher stakeholder group is in regards to the ability to manage the in-room lesson planning as well as remote and tandem. How close would we be to, from the time that we transition back on site, to then having some technology that would make that a little bit more easier, if you will, for our teachers to kind of navigate between in-person and remote students?
Well, I can share a few of the conversations that we've been having. One of them is simply, the ability to have a second monitor a second device or a monitor in the classroom. And in some of our schools, we're looking at simply bringing the computers that we have that are standing idle in our media centers into classrooms. So there's those kinds of things that we may be doing that are actually, cost neutral. There are just some things to explore. For example, microphones. We may find that the microphones that we have that the teachers already have will be enough to support what's happening in the classroom, but there could be some value to getting another microphone or a small video camera that the teacher might be able to use. We're being very careful and tentative about it because we also don't want to purchase things that don't end up getting needed. And I'll give just an example. I had a conversation with a colleague in another district where they purchased headphones for all of the teachers because that was thought that would be really helpful. When they got going, the teachers have not been using the headphones. It just turned out not to be useful for them. So we don't want to be in that position. So it could be a matter of piloting some things rather than doing district-wide purchases and seeing what works best for us.
Thank you, Dr. Glickman. And then my last question is for the 2 institute days that I understand will be rolling back or not having. Did I hear that correctly? And if we're not going to have them, are they being repurposed? I'm just trying to think of in terms of when we do get to that cusp of bringing in the new technology, how are we going to scale up our teachers in this new space?
Okay, I think I'm understanding your question. The remote learning days, is that what you're asking about? Those are the
Yes.
days the state has allowed school districts to have 5 extra days where basically that can be used for staff development or teacher planning, whatever it is needed for success for that year. So we have to work with our teachers union still and actually our PSRP union as well to identify when they'll be and how they'll be structured. But the concept is whatever it takes to get people ready. And I think a lot of that information is going to come out of that thought exchange that we're going to do. We want people to tell us, what is it that you need to get ready? Do you want to add anything to that, Paul?
Just at the remote learning planning days, the state indicates as a student attendance. Students don't come, but it counts towards our student attendance days. So we don't make up the day like it was an emergency day or something. So it is just additional days. We're hoping for 1 or 2 before having teachers on site. We know that there's just some work that teachers have to do because teachers, as you probably all know, typically spend a lot of time to get their rooms ready and prepared. And none of that was done so far because our full focus was every energy on the remote learning that we were working on. So we do need some time for teachers to get into their classrooms, make it more ready, friendlier for kids, because right now it is not quite ready for students. So we're going to need some additional time. We also have to have some teachers move some furniture and remove some things because we want to have as much space available in each of the rooms. So we do have to give teachers time to do those things because all the other time we used this year have been directly focusing on remote learning.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Glickman. Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Mack?
All right, thank you, Mr. Weedman. Actually, 2 of my questions were answered by the questions my colleague answered, but I am going to piggyback off of them because I just want to make sure I understand a nuance or two. But Mrs. Nash asked about the types of technology needed, and then I just want to make sure that we feel confident in the ability of the infrastructure to handle now more people being on the infrastructure when they're in the building, in addition to everybody calling in and stuff from the outside. I know that's been an issue in some of the places I've been, but just wanted to clarify that too. Yeah.
So our tech department over the last few years have been working hard based on your ability to provide us with some additional bandwidth and all the different things. So that has been in progress. So that was not something new, thankfully. But also just a few other things. Last year we did MAP testing, Measure of Academic Progress, NWA, where we had almost the entire school testing at the same time. We didn't have any glitches. We had a few issues with the test, but it wasn't because of the connections. We also had, in previous years, we had our park testing or our IAR assessment, where we had full wings of the buildings all testing all at the same time. So we feel very comfortable because those were high demand pulls. I don't know of the better way to say that, but those were high demand needs for that. And we're also remembering that we're not having a full school. So we are not having the entire population of our students here at the same time, with some being fully remote and some being in an A group or a B group or an AM or PM. That's reducing that load as well. Our tech department has been working on that, and they have assured us that there is not an issue. If something happens with our major connection, that will be an issue, but that won't be because we're not prepared for it.
Thank you. And I know it's a day-by-day type of thing with technology. And thank you for reminding me of the map testing, because that helps visualize that in my head. I appreciate that. Then I know there was also a question Mrs. Nash asked about the support that teachers are getting. Has there been thought, or I know you mentioned when you shift back into collaborative mode, has there been thought potentially too of adding opportunities for planning time for teachers outside of the 5 days that the state is giving by, for example, going from one late start a month to one late start day a week to allow for maximum planning in the time where we have both remote and on-site learning? And if that flexibility for a period of time might be helpful to the teachers who feel overwhelmed with possible additional planning. And again, that could be something that could be temporary, that could be something that could be permanent. And if it's not as much as a question as it is perhaps something to add to the pile of ideas, but
I'm glad to take a stab at that. We were both deciding who was going to push the button at that moment. So the whole concept of the late starts is that we actually bank some minutes because we have to have so many minutes per week or per month or whatever. And so we would actually have to extend the other days to go longer to get more minutes to bank that we could take time off more. So before I came to the district had already created all of that, and they've done the mathematical issues about counting how many late starts have we banked by having the length of the school day. I don't know if I'm making sense to say what. So maybe schools that do have late start every week, their actual everyday schedule is longer, so that they're banking or borrowing those minutes. I hope I'm making myself
and that
clear.
makes sense.
And
That-
so
that
at the
helps.
moment, I think we're about to the limit
Of
of
where
what
you
we
need to
can
be.
do
Mhm.
based on the current length of the school year, the school day.
Yeah.
That's my best crack
All right,
at
all right.
explaining
That
it.
was good. That was good. And finally, I think, and again, this is probably less of a question and more of a comment. I want to make sure that we're going to have families, and kids potentially transitioning back into an on-site learning environment. And I want to make sure that the social emotional conversations that potentially happen in that way are happening when the students are welcomed back into the building, and wondering if that is part of the conversation too. All for you, Mr. Lewis.
So the social emotional part is going to be really important. And so I envision that the teachers are going to need some time with their on-site kids to build
Talk
that.
about that, right?
And so that is going to have to, at the elementary, it's probably going to be incorporated into their morning meetings. Most elementary classrooms have some way to bring the class together. In our plan, we talked about it being an SEL lesson, a focus for the day, or a mini tech lesson. My guess is that we're going to have to refocus on those. We've had a team who's been working on SEL topics that are being provided for the whole district every week. Those are going to continue. They may need to do some additional things with that. So I'm assuming those are all things that we'll continue to work on.
Well, and I know that teachers are doing an amazing job building relationships. I mean, both of my children in the district, have awesome relationships. So I would imagine that would transition very easily. But I know there's also going to be the different questions from kids, why, how are we going back? What do we, if that happens, and that just is
That whole idea-
constantly, rolling through my mind.
I apologize, I interrupted you.
No.
The thing I was using before, I was trying to use community, because I do think a classroom builds community, and we look out for each other and help each other and learn each other. And yes, some of those faces may change if the class groupings change, but the teachers will continue to make those great connections. And even those on-site, just those few second interactions can make a big difference. And just like the remote kids, the teacher will want to have that time too with on the computer as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. Weedman. Yeah, my questions have mostly been answered, so I'll just, comment that my two concerns with a vote last week were the safe centers and really understanding the concerns of our teachers about quality of instruction. So safe centers clearly, thank you. The work on that is truly impressive. So it's much appreciated. And I know the texts and emails that I've received about it have been very grateful. So thank you for that. And then, I also want to thank the teachers who've emailed us and texted us and had phone conversations with us, because what I've heard loud and clear is it really is about quality of instruction. And they desperately want to be back and they want to do a great job. And so the thing that was most important for me to hear is that we are giving them the time and the space and the tools that they need to be as successful as they can be in a suboptimal environment. And I think, the one thing that really just struck me is that we're not trying to say that this is an optimal environment. There are no optimal environments. So I appreciate that, and I guess I would just add, if there are investments that you find that you think would be helpful, I know there's been some tech talk about setups that would allow teachers to be more sort of free to move about the country, so to speak. If there's something that we even could purchase where a teacher could go into a room for one day and have access to some equipment that would really, be able to increase the effectiveness to which they could work. Please bring that to us. I think maybe during the thought exchange that those items might come up, and I think we'd be willing to look at any and all investments that would set them up for success.
Okay, I'm gonna go up to the cloud. I'm gonna pull Mr. Strack.
Okay. Questions I had have already been asked, but I would just say that first of all, thank you for addressing the concerns that were expressed since the last meeting and during the last meeting, particularly the safe centers and the quality of instruction, things of that nature. Um, uh, I mean, what we have is a problem with no, like Christy was just saying, no real optimal solution. So I think that we need to put together the best plan that we can and be willing to adjust it as time goes on. And I think we're there or very nearly there with this particular plan. And I would remind people to remember or to remind people that that this is a temporary situation. It's awful now. Some people may think it's awful. Some people may think it's great. There's a lot in the middle. Um, but it's not. This is not a permanent status for the rest of time. This is a bridge to get us through this unfortunate situation that we're in, and we'll continue to do the best that we can to try to address as many concerns as we can, and to try to ensure an equitable experience for all of our students. Um, so again, thanks for all the hard work on this, and thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. LaCroix?
Thank you, Jim. I did have a couple questions, but before I get to what I had, Paul, on the late start days, the idea of being up against a minute requirement, is there no allowance from ISB due to COVID, or is that just the remote learning planning days? Is that the only thing that we can use to kind of make up that time?
That's my understanding at the moment. That ISB had granted a few things about different topics, but this one, they are giving the 5 remote days for districts to use at their discretion. And that's, I think, about the only thing. I'm looking at Lynn, and we both are saying that's about the only change that we're aware of.
Okay.
I would add, though, that it's certainly something we can pursue. And the reason I'm thinking about that, we can ask them, because ISB has talked about the number of clock hours a student needs to have, and there may be a little bit of room. So it's certainly worth pursuing if the board is interested in us pursuing that.
Okay. Another topic is it seems entirely conceivable to me that prior to the start of a hybrid plan launching, let's say for hypothetical reasons, we say it's November 16th is the date we're going to go live, Monday, November 16th. The week before, say November 12th, the metrics slide into territory where we can't do our hybrid plan. I guess I'm wondering, what happens? Do we stay status quo, or do we on Monday the 16th launch as if we were in the hybrid plan? Let's say there were some, a handful of students who switched teachers. Would they be reporting to the new teacher? If I'm getting ahead of myself here and that's not known, just please tell me, but that's something that was on my mind.
No, that's a great question. I can answer it 2 ways. First of all, I want to provide a little bit of a little bit of ongoing clarity about the metrics and what we hear from the Lake County Department of Health regarding that, because I had a conversation with them as recently as today. So their current recommendation is, they have a 7-day recommendation. That's what they're looking at. So a school, so the metrics need to be in a certain color, because we've all been looking at those colors, right? The red, yellow, and green, for 7 days before we would make a change. And by that, and this is what that would look like in this case. If it were within 7 days of us being ready to launch, if we were starting to tip into the red, we would be talking with the Lake County Department of Health. They might say, go ahead and get started. Because they really are looking for it to be like a, over time. It's not just one day a metrics goes into red and you need to make a change. So we would really have some nice leeway going into the start of hybrid to know whether there was a likelihood that we'd be able to do it or not. And so I think the nexus of your question, Jason, about would we make those little changes ahead of time or not? I think it's how close to making the changes are we? And we need to have some conversations, I think, with our administrators and really our teachers union as well about that.
Right. Sounds like something you might not know the answer to until you have that particular fact set.
Right. Not a full answer, but I did want everyone to hear that it's not that we're looking, it's not the week before and suddenly one metric goes red and we say, oh, we need to halt. That's not necessarily what we would be recommended to do from the county.
Okay. I did want to also echo and acknowledge that I think this hybrid plan is going to be extremely challenging for our teachers. I just, in echoing some of the comments that have been made already, I want to ask that we make sure, as an administration, as a board, we stay, laser focused on providing whatever it is they need in order to continue the work that they do each and every day, the tiny little miracles that they do each and every day to, provide such great instruction during a really historically crappy time. I happen to know personally that there, for instance, a first grade section at Woodview School has, 26 kids in it. So I just want to make sure that we're, responsive to what the teachers are telling us that they need in order to make this work. And I have every faith that that will be the case, but I just felt like I really wanted to emphasize that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Ms. Miller?
Yeah, so I'm going to digress just for a little bit because we've gotten so many emails from engaged parents and teachers outside the district especially have really rallied. So I like that model and want to start with that. I want to also feel like we need to pause. This is, I think, chapter 1, and we talk about narratives, and I think it's just good always to pause and mark kind of what we've accomplished. And I made a list because it just cleared my mind. So I hope you'll bear with me in that. But I'm proud that every child has access to food. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that every family is supported with connections to local relief agencies, that every child has his or her own Chromebook. I'm proud that we are engaging a wider variety of stakeholders, that we've built access to a virtual classroom, and that our teachers have done incredible amount of work to make that happen. I'm proud that we have community engagement strategies in a committee that we're committed to helping one another and committed to dialogue and to local partnerships. I'm really proud that this board has not skipped a single meeting, not one, in the context of COVID. And I don't think we can say that about most organizations. I think that's stellar. So I'm proud to work with you. Thank you. I'm also proud of our community, I'm proud that we're committed to service, that we commit to help one another, and we win when we do that. I'm really proud of that. But most of all, I'm proud of our resourcefulness. And I'm going to read this because there's so much. During COVID, we have encouraged one another. We have fed one another. We have grieved and prayed with one another. We have grown gardens, harvested seeds, played games, organized microschools, service learning projects, cohorts, and learning pods. We have organized scavenger hunts, fundraisers, protests, youth groups, birthday parades, scavenger hunts, and driveway campfires. We have decorated our yards and marched in solidarity with neighbors and police, ridden bikes, paddled canoes, exchanged bottles of wine and sourdough bread. We have rented RVs, traveled to our national parks, and created a whole host of other solutions. In this community, we care, we work, and we discover a way together. And parents, for those of you who think you're failing, I need you to hear this. If you think your kids are not learning, you're mistaken. Our kids, all of our kids, are watching every breath that we take, every challenge we meet, every decision we make, and they are learning how to manage uncertainty and transition. We have much to be proud of. And together we're doing the best we can with what we have and what we know, and our kids can't ask more, and we can't expect more from ourselves. So I hope you can rest in that. I hope those of you that are new to this, whose kids are young, can rest in that. We're doing a good job. We are getting through this. And now we move to chapter 2. And I feel like I'm between a stone and a hard place, because I feel like I have to choose between a really excellent remote plan, the best that we can offer, and a really excellent hybrid plan. And I know our job as a board is to set direction, and I think the hybrid plan moves in that direction to increase connection. But we've heard so much from teachers that say this is not possible. And I have a husband who sits, and it's not 2 devices, it's 5. And I watch him, and he's exhausted. And I don't know how to make sense of that, because I do think our leadership team is amazing. And I do think that our teachers, given enough time and enough supplies and resources, can make it happen. But I'm not convinced it's enough time right now. And that's not because I don't support our administrators. It's not because I don't think that they've done everything they can. I just think none of us knows this situation well enough yet. And that's where I'm stuck, and I don't know. I wish we didn't have to vote for or against a hybrid plan. I wish we could vote for or against remote or hybrid, because when I think of quality instruction, I know that there are not measures that tell us enough yet. We just don't know. So I'm struggling with that. I would like to hear more discussion, if we can, just for a few minutes, about how this is working in classrooms. Because the only one I see is the one upstairs in my house, and that one, it's an incredible amount of work. It's not just a little, and I don't think it's 2 days of professional development. And that's with adults. I'm hearing loud and clear from our community, at least the people who are reaching out and engaged, that they don't want this. I'm also hearing loud and clear from people that they want their kids connected to teachers and peers. Can we have a little, does anyone have any more insights about that? And so everyone knows, I did not tell anyone this, so this is a big surprise. So maybe we need to take 10 minutes, and I apologize to all of you for that.
Christy, there's nothing for you to apologize for. You're making your points, and you're well within your right as a board member to make those points. So there's no apology needed.
Okay.
We have been bombarded by emails on both sides of this issue. There's no winning in this issue for anybody. Not for those that want to stay home, not for those that want their kids in school, not for the teachers, not for the administration, and definitely not for the board. There's no winning here. It's doing, as you said, the best we can to try and come up with a plan that is will be moving forward. And as Dr. Lewis and Dr. Glickman both stated, flexible, moldable, kind of a living document, so that we can adjust on the fly to what will or will not work. Because I don't think anybody goes into a plan, especially anyone like this, any situation like this, with a foolproof plan that is going to get them through for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe the rest of the year. There is no foolproof plan for this. My experience is having a child sitting at home, trying to make those connections with his teachers, it's not happening. And he's in high school. So my kid doesn't go to these, my kids are all out of District 46 now. So, but I know how important those connections are with all of his teachers that he had here, or, well, he's the last one, so all of my kids had here. Those are very important. We know our teachers are good. We know that they'll make adjustments as they need fit. Some of them have already made major adjustments as they've gone. And I would fully expect that that would continue. But I know there are a lot of families out here that their kids are struggling without being on site. And that's hard to swallow because then we're not being equitable to them either. Again, to me, there's no foolproof way to solve this issue other than moving forward with a hybrid plan that tries to accommodate as many people as we can in different situations. You know, it's tough. It's a tough sitting here. I mean, like I said, we have been bombarded by emails, not only from parents that are mad at us because we're considering it, but the parents that are mad at us because we're not done yet, and teachers that are on both sides of the fence. Which there's 4 different groups that we have to try and juggle, and there's no way. I'm sorry, I suck at juggling. You know, there's no way we're going to solve it with one single plan that will work for every household in this district, every parent, every child, even children inside of the same household probably have different needs. And I think the plan that we have and has been laid out in front of it, as long as it remains flexible and like a living document, so that the teachers can make adjustments on the fly, and we give them the material support that we've talked about through technology or cameras or microphones or whatever they may need. I think that's how we push through this to get to the other side of this historically crappy situation for everybody in the United States. Because I don't know, I struggle a little bit. And I'm just going to go backwards a little bit because I had an unexpected phone call from my brother today. He lives outside of Tampa. They have been in school fully since the beginning of the semester with 0 problems. Their metrics are different than ours. They have a positivity rate about 2%. We're right about 5%. So their metrics are a little bit different, but they've had 2 cases in their schools down there where they had to send the kids home. People around the country are going back fully on site with all their kids. I personally like the idea of stepping off, as Mr. Strack had pointed out, is this is a bridge to get us all back on site at some point, be it after the first of the year, be it 2021. We have to move forward to improve instruction for as many people as we can. And I think if we stayed in hybrid, or if we stayed in the fully remote, we're leaving kids behind that are struggling. And I think we have an opportunity to help as many people as possible. And not that I'm not dismissing any of the comments that came from anybody on the board, and I'm not dismissing any of the emails and the text messages and all those other things we've gotten from all of our people, citizens in the district. They all have valid points. Each one of them has a valid concern. We have to try and address as many of them as possible. And I think with this plan, I think we're really there. Does that help, Christy?
Yes, thank you. Just taking notes. But I'm curious about the rest too.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm curious about what everyone else is thinking as well, please.
Yeah, Ms. Miller, thank you for sharing your passionate message to your fellow board, community stakeholders that are listening in the community. You know, it's very moving, and I feel like depending on the day, I've gone one way one day another day. And what I've come back to, just listening to my colleagues here, the emails from our community stakeholders, is what's in the best interest of the children of District 46. And at the end of the day, that's going to vary by household, by child. I feel like we all have the children at the center of what we're trying to do here and moving forward. I feel like the teachers, provided they are equipped to live in this dual environment in short term, in short order, needs would be met to some extent, right? I think we've acknowledged that there's no one size fit all, but I think the bridge is making sure that the teachers are equipped to provide the best educational experience they can give to our children during this difficult time. I feel like there's been a demographic in our community that's been drowned out in terms of those parents and families who want the choice to make that decision, um, and take that risk if they so choose for their family, their children. And I do believe that while it may not necessarily be for me and my household and family, when I look at what's going to strike the broadest balance across all of our constituents, the hybrid model does do that. It does allow parent choice. So for those parents who want to send their children back on site for in-person, albeit I know what's been underpinning that is for the children to have that social interaction and their emotional needs met with the teacher. I don't believe it's going to be as robust as many parents have articulated that want that. However, it's their decision to make to send their child back, however limited that social emotional experience is going to be on site, while the plan still affords families that don't feel like remote, or excuse me, on site is for them to maintain that remote status. I'm particularly concerned about children with underlying medical conditions, pulmonary respiratory conditions like celiac disease, bronchitis, asthma in our communities, and recognizing just the restrictions and limitations that being in a mask all day will present to them. So I do believe that those parents under this plan still have the ability to say, it's not for my child right now. Me being one of them with two children that suffer from moderate to severe asthma. That all, so that all being said, this is the only thing that starts to get us on the path forward, albeit it's not perfect, but parents have choice, remote's still an option. And while we know that at least how we'll start with remote may not be ideal, I do appreciate from Mr. Lewis hearing the intention around making sure that we are pivoting from Chromebook, headset, head down to more engaging instruction. I do appreciate the fact that teacher resources are being explored to give them a more optimal situation to live in this dual environment. And I'm really pleased that Dr. Glickman and the administrators have found a way to maintain safe centers for families that otherwise would be even more restrictive in their capabilities during this time. So, thank you.
So as always, the conversations, I'm moved by what you said, Christy, and I'm sure I can speak for a large part of the global population when I confirm that I am exhausted. I mean, we have been in a perpetual state of stress, fear, pivoting, building, taking down, putting up, drive-by birthdays, bottles of wine, all this kind of stuff for the past 9 months. And I don't feel like, I'm a teacher. I'm in my building 2 days a week, I'm home 3 days a week, and the weekends I'm doing my grading. I'm pivoting multiple times a week. I'm exhausted. I don't feel like at any point I get to rest. But I also know that I wouldn't have it any other way right now, because I have kids in my classroom and kids in my home that need that need to see that there's a voice for them to share, that need to see that the schools have not been defeated, and that we're working to make sure that families and kids and communities and all stakeholders have a voice. It's not easy. It never will be easy. It can't possibly be easy, and there's no framework that any of us can come up with that can make it easy. But I know for my oldest daughter, who's in a wheelchair and nonverbal, she has done so much better at remote learning than I ever thought possible. And yet I can never replace the human contact that her teachers who are trained in special education can give her, that even I, as her father, cannot give her at home. So we've had a choice, and she has blossomed. But I also know that another choice that I would like for her is to go back. And I also know that my other two children who are in this district have the same thing. We've been fortunate. They've been able to do very well, and I know that they will also do well in other situations. But for me, it's an opportunity to give more voice to the community, to the families, to the students. I don't think we're voting yes or no on a hybrid plan. I think we're voting yes or no on expanding the voices in the community and the ability for them to access that. But I'm exhausted, and I don't know how to reconcile that yet. And I don't know that we're going to be able to reconcile that for a ways to come. But if we're pulling together like we are, which we are, and those things in your list were incredible. We are a successful community. We are a loving community, and we are in this together. And amidst all the different feelings and emotions that we have together, it comes down to we are together and we are doing this in any way we possibly can. And it will be temporary, I hope. It will move on like other things in human history, other moments and milestones that move us forward. And I want to make sure that for my children and for the children in the community, the fundamental thing is that everybody has a choice and a voice to make sure that they are able to access these things in a way that's reasonable for them and make those decisions in that way. But I'm exhausted. And I know that my weekends are gone perpetually now. So thank you for sharing that and letting us share that.
I'm just upset I didn't get any wine. Christy?
I'm on it, Mr. Weedman. Thank you for being vulnerable. Our vulnerability is our strength. So I really appreciate you sharing. And I agree. I can't, there's a mic drop after Dr. Mack. I mean, what do you say after that? But I'm absolutely resonated everything you said, both of you. I just go back to what I said with the decision before us in August, that remote learning is a privilege for people who have the ability to stay home to create amazing micro classrooms, to, team up, to send their kids to private school, to have tutors come in, to have nannies come in. That's all a privilege. It's wonderful for the people who have that privilege. And I think, at the beginning of this school year, we tried to set up a system to at least get folks who didn't have those privileges safe. And I do feel like we have an obligation, as the metrics guide us to do so, to expand that so that we are erasing inequities that are inevitably created by 100% remote learning. And so that's kind of where I am. I mean, it's all horrible, right? I mean, we've all said it, like 100% remote is awful. Hybrid is awful. And so, the other place that I sat with and worked out on my walk today was, there's really 3 awfuls that we have to choose from. We have to choose between asking teachers to stretch themselves like they've never stretched before and teach dually and support them like hell, and just get behind them and prop them up and, give them what they need. We can endure some sort of massive classroom reshuffling to do 100%, to have people choose 100% remote or 100% on in person, or we can do some sort of thing that takes away 100% synchronous. And when I look at those 3 options, those 3 awful options, to me, dual learning is the least horrible of all of them, still extremely horrible.
Chrissy, can you say that again? I didn't hear just the very last part.
Well, when I look at, we can't have all 3. We can't take away all 3 of those. We have to make trade-offs. And so when I think about, where do we choose? I look at the choice to take the plan that we are taking as the still absolutely awful choice that is equitable for the most amount of people. And that puts our children at the center. And I will say the other thing that I've been humbled by the comments that we've received across the board. I found them, 99% of them, to be constructive. And a couple people said that they didn't hear us putting kids at the center. And so I really tried to reflect on that over the past week and make sure that in my decisions, I was filtering that through. So whoever said that, I can't remember if it was someone who's here tonight or not. I really appreciate that. It was very helpful to me. And so when I think about what is the least horrible choice for the greater good for the most amount of students, that's where I landed. And I hope that's helpful to you.
It is, thank you. I don't know if Stephen and Jason.
Jason, do you have any comments you want to add?
Yeah, thanks. So as I reflected on my thought process about this decision, a lot of the themes that have been touched upon emerged. This plan is unlikely to be a fit for just about anyone. As was mentioned, there are just too many disparate needs and preferences across so many different elements. I do believe that careful consideration was given to every perspective. All of the emails, the conversations we've had. I think that the administration has done its level best to create a plan that offers the most flexibility to the widest range of needs. And I think that's where we're landing on this. It's just, there's going to be some people who, if this plan gets approved, are going to be unhappy about it and probably, somewhat disadvantaged by it. I'm thinking of, perhaps a kid who might not go into in-person and might have their teacher change, this wonderful teacher that they've had. So I don't have anything fresh or new from what's been said. I'd like to ask for grace, I think. There's been no simple answers to this situation in which we find ourselves through no fault of our own. We can get through this if we can find the grace and compassion for one another. I sincerely hope this plan is but a moment in time, a waypoint on the path, right? Back to what we all want for our kids. But yeah, I plan on supporting a move to this hybrid plan, warts and all.
Thank you, Jason. Stephen, Strack, do you have anything to add?
I do not. Just I agree with what's been said, and they've said it better than I can. But I acknowledge that like Mr. Mack said, we are all exhausted. Um, it's been a it, it, it it's been one struggle after another with this. There is no perfect. And as the saying goes, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think the way I look at it is that um, uh, what I'm most in favor of is providing the choice to the families in the district to either be on site um, or not. And given that, then that means that we have to find the best way to uh, provide our educational services both remotely and in person at the same time. And I think this plan um, is at the current moment in its current form probably as good as we can get, as close as we can get. Again, as I said before, with the flexibility to make changes as we need to address any problems that arise or concerns that are raised or anything like that. But I think I think we're as close as we're going to get at this point. Um, but I thank all my colleagues for their comments.
Thank you, Stephen. Christy, Miller, did you have anything else you wanted to go over?
Just a comment, not really a question. I am haunted by what this is going to do to teachers. Haunted by it. So I trust that when the thought exchange goes out tomorrow, that our teachers will be thoughtful about how they respond. And I already know that our administration cares deeply about teachers. Like, there's no question about that in my mind. I'm hoping that our community will rally behind our teachers, that we will bring them meals, that we will offer them childcare, that we will give them praise all the time about every little success that they make. I don't think that should just be the administration's job. I think that's all of our job. They are the healthcare workers that we were supporting many weeks ago that we should continue to support. And I think our teachers are the ones who need it now, because while I totally agree, I think families need to have the option to make the choice. I don't think our teachers have a lot of choice right now. Just in the last few emails that I've gotten from art teachers in particular, which I haven't talked about for a while, this is an incredible burden on an already impossible teaching situation for them. So it's just a comment that I hope that we pace this at a time that they really have time to not just readjust, but also to rest with their own families and figure out their own childcare and figure out all of those things, which I know everyone in this room cares about. So I'll shut up. Thank you.
Just a clarifying question, Mr. Weedman, in terms of the teacher reassignment. I know that we won't know the true impact until the thought exchange, the survey goes out tomorrow and we get that data back and analyze. But as I understand, the goal was to be minimal. It's expected to be minimal impact. And so for Dr. Glickman and Mr. Lewis, I'm curious if, in terms of prioritization, so if we know that there are some teachers, because some have been very clear that they want to be on-prem. And so if that becomes the case, I guess what I'm hoping for is that balancing the needs of the teachers and their voice, that we would at least prioritize those teachers that have indicated they want to be on-prem, teed up first to support the in-person student learning model, the hybrid.
Okay, I've been having a little trouble hearing over here, so if I'm not answering your question, please let me know. So tomorrow, a survey is going to all of our families um, with lots of information and requesting a selection of on-site or, excuse me, a hybrid or remote. For our kindergartners through fourth grade families, there will be an additional question that asks if your child's teacher is not in the setting that you're requesting, would you want to be contacted to switch to the other setting? So I wanted to share that with you. I'm not sure that's quite what you asked, but that's something that we've included in our survey because we've had so many families say, well, I want to know what my child's teacher is doing because that's what I want to do. So we're giving that space for people to be able to express that. I think, Tamika, you were asking about how we will prioritize our staff in terms of what kind of assignments that they're having. Is that correct?
Sure, to minimize
Yeah.
that reassignment impact as much as
Absolutely.
possible.
So I can share with you that a few things. First of all, you know, the needs of our staff, we're starting with the priority of individuals that actually have conditions that would require us to give them accommodations, their own condition. And so those accommodations could end up being a remote setting. It could be something else. So that's really the first level of priority. The next group of people that we would be prioritizing in terms of trying to meet the needs that they are expressing are people that live with family members that have conditions that put them at risk. So those are the two highest groups that we're going to be working on. And I can share with you that Mr. Woke and I have individual meetings with every building principal to person by person go through all of the needs of the school and the needs of the staff to do everything that we can to both meet the stated needs of our staff members to the best of our ability and to minimize the amount of switching classes as possible. So that's our plan moving forward.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question of you? Are teachers going to be afforded as much flexibility as possible in using grounds if they want to go outside, if they can use the entire their building? And I see you nodding, so yes. And is it also possible for them to use community spaces? We have lots of parks and bike trails, and we've invested heavily in our community. Will they have access to that, or is that worth considering?
Well, I would imagine that I think we probably have to look at those things as field trips to some extent, right? If a teacher's taking children off campus,
Right.
we have to work, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
We've done field trips before.
Yeah,
Field trips
exactly.
can happen, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I had one more question. This is just a logistics question. And it came at the very last minute, so if you don't know, that's fine. I can
Okay.
look it up. Are bus drivers going to have to wear masks the
Yeah.
entire time?
So first of all, important to know that what I'm going to describe to you is not something that's under our control. It is, we contract with our bus company. So according to our bus company, the drivers will wear masks while the students are entering and exiting, excuse me, while my mask falls. While students are entering and exiting the bus, they cannot wear masks while they are driving due to how the masks limit their vision. And so and we've stated that so that parents know that's on the plan, so that families who are not comfortable with that would make another plan for how they were going to have their children transported to school.
Okay. Can you repeat that, just the middle part one more time? They cannot wear masks because it interrupts their vision?
Their
or what?
vision,
Okay.
yeah, their vision while they're, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, this is Jason LaCroix. I have one more comment, I suppose it is. We talk about this plan as having the characteristic of being adaptable going forward. And this probably goes without saying, but I think we're probably going to want to hear some regular reporting on how things are going, how instruction is going in this mode. Um, I don't want to burden you with, this big reporting responsibility, but I think the board, and, I'm kind of speaking for us all now, but we'll want some reporting on how the teachers are finding it going and how the students are finding it going as well. Is that something that sounds like it's possible to provide on a regular basis once we get into this model?
It sounds possible and necessary.
Yes, thank you. Great, thanks.
Okay. I think we had actually a very lively discussion because it was an hour and 15 minutes. So we had very good questions, and I thank everybody for that. So if we can have a vote, please.
Yes. Weedman,
Yes.
Miller,
I'm going to vote no.
okay. Mack,
Yes.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is need a motion to approve the transition schedule for the hybrid and remote learning plan.
So moved.
Second.
Want me to talk it through?
Sure.
Okay. So the plan, the transition plan is the one that was presented last week, but moved back a week. So it has us bringing our early childhood center students and kindergarten and the students in our MILE program in on November 9th. November 6th, grades 1, 2, 5, and 7. Then we do have the week of November 23rd is parent-teacher conferences and the Thanksgiving holiday. And then the week of November 30th, we'd be bringing back grades 3, 4, 6, and 8. Is there any more information you want me to share?
The only comment I wanted to reiterate with this whole thing is obviously as we get into the fall season here, or more into the fall season, I should say, as the metrics change from the data that we get from IDPH and the county health, obviously, this is the flexibility part of that plan is, I mean, we could come right up to November 30th and all of a sudden we're coming back to everybody and say, we gotta stop this because the metrics are changing and we need to be smart about that. And I think that's where the flexibility of at least starting going down this road and watching the metrics comes into play.
Clarifying question in terms of the grade levels that were selected to go back when, so hearing from our community, I think what resonated with me the most and sounded like it was the loudest cry of them all were parents of children who were in the lower level grades. So your kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, obviously those children with special needs on IEPs, 504 plans. Curious in terms of when I'm looking at the week of November 16th, when it goes 1, 2, 5, 7, what went into those particular grade levels. And then I guess a part B I'll ask preemptively is, would it be feasible if there wasn't some major construct around having those higher grades, the fifth and seventh, during that second week? Would it be possible to reserve the higher grade levels for last, given they seem to be more self-sufficient, self-sustained, doing better in this remote environment than the other grades? So I'll pause there. So that's kind of like part 1A, 1B, and then I may have a follow-up depending.
Sure. So think about the structure of our schools. We have schools that are K4, a 5-6, a 7-8, and then one school that's K8. So in our K4 schools, we wanted to bring, we didn't want to fill the school all at one time. There is value, and I think throughout the country, honestly, we've seen people very positive about that concept of stair-stepping, transitioning students in. So we didn't want to bring 1, 2, 3, and 4 all together into one school at one time because that doesn't allow that school to have that transition in. And then at Frederick, where we have 5th and 6th graders, well, we wanted to bring the 5th graders in first because frankly, those students have never been to Frederick. This is their first experience. Similarly at GMS, we want to bring the 7th graders in because those students have never been to GMS before. So that's the reason for the structure.
Okay, that's helpful. And then in terms of staggering it by a week, given that we recognize this is going to be a tremendous overhaul for our teachers, at least at the onset, right? Would we consider giving an extra week between that initial, so that November 9th, right? So if we're starting off with November 9th, is it possible to push the November 17th to November 30th? So basically, I'm looking for just additional time up front to allow our teachers a little bit more time to get comfortable in this untenable situation.
You know, certainly we can. Just like everything else, there's the push on every side, right? So absolutely, that would give our teaching staff more time, and I'm sure that that would be greatly appreciated. We have families that are incredibly anxious to get their students on site, as well as we continue to get asked the question, you know, well, why would we be opening so close to winter break? And so the further back we push it, the closer we're even getting to winter break. So there could be some value to having the students have a little bit more time on site prior to winter break. But anything is possible.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Glickman, how much time do teachers typically have just in a normal year? How much, like, I know you probably have to guess, but what's your gut or instinct on how long they normally have to set up a classroom they're familiar with and they've been spent at least 4, if not longer, years training to develop?
So that's a great question. So typically the last few years, we've had 3 institute days before school starts. And we try to have at least 2 half days fully devoted to teacher time, that we're not having PD or anything. I will fully admit that some of that teacher time could be with health meetings or with special ed collaboration or whatever, but we do try to give 2 half days as part of the 3 full institute days. But I have to say that the vast majority of teachers spend a lot of time outside of those 3 days. So I would be remiss if I didn't put value and appreciation to all that time that's not part of our calendar. But we do have teachers who spend lots of hours before those 3 institute days.
So would it be accurate to say that many teachers, especially first-year teachers, I think I spent at least a week and a half or 2 weeks coming in early, buying things with my own money, figuring out what I needed to set up a classroom. Would you say that it's an untrue statement to say that in a normal year, teachers spend at least a week of their own, and they're in the context of coming off a restful summer vacation? And I say that hesitantly because I know many teachers work through the summer. So, but in a normal situation, is a week about?
I think it's hard to really say exactly how much.
Sure.
It depends on the teacher.
I
Right.
think it
there.
depends on the grade level. It
Yeah.
depends on their experience. It depends if it's not a new grade level. So there's a
Right.
lot of depends in there. And as we all know, our elementary staff probably spend more effort in their classroom setup, and I'm not disrespecting our middle school colleagues, but there's a whole lot more cutting and stapling and gluing and all those things happening in the rooms at the very early elementary. And that's to create that environment. So I can't really say that it's a, many teachers will do it based on, I come in for a few hours here, I come in for a few hours here.
Sure.
When I was principal on the rainy days before school started, there were a lot of
Lot of
people in the
people.
building. And that was just the reality. I'm not making light of the situation, but it is, dependent on every teacher.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question is, what would be the impact of moving to January? Because what I'm hearing, and you can correct me, and there's a lot of assumptions what I'm about to say, but especially younger kids, my understanding is they do well with routine and they do well with a lack of disruption. And the semester ends at the end of the holidays, right? And when does the semester end?
So we're remembering that we're on trimesters.
That's right,
And
okay.
so our trimester actually ends November 6th, and the new one starts on November 9th. And so that November 9th was kind of a key date because we had talked about making a plan through first trimester. And so we have had teachers ask that question, that if there's a minimal change in teachers that will mess up the grading, the person who's in charge of grading for the trimester. Our teachers are amazing and they'll collaborate and figure that out. So if you ask what's the difference, it's, the trimester is one key date, but if we don't meet that key date, I think we can work around any of them.
Okay, but for kids who come in, who go on vacation and come back and come back, I guess the bigger question is just what's the bottom line? Does it make sense, or what would be the benefit of delaying the implementation of the plan until January when we come back from winter break?
Well, probably, just like everything else, everything has costs and benefits. So there will be people who feel that it's a benefit because we've given more time to prepare. There will be people who believe that it's a cost because students haven't been able to get on site as quickly. There'll be people who feel that it's a benefit because we're able to see what the metrics are doing as the winter goes on. There'll be people who think it's a cost because for the very same reason, because perhaps we'll be coming, otherwise perhaps we come on site soon and kids get a little bit of an on-site experience, and then perhaps we do have to go remote again, which may happen. So we probably could do this for a while, right?
Okay.
There's positives and negatives to every choice.
Okay, thank you.
I think I just want to piggyback on what Christy brought up around teacher, again, centering students. How do we make this as effective for them as possible? And so, what's on my mind is teachers who are going back, who are also prep time, to do it well, to get set up, to feel like, especially if there's a change, right? And then the other thing that I think about in that is rested teachers. I think Christy said that really well earlier, who are able to feel that they can spend time with their families over the holidays and not bring, in between Thanksgiving and the winter holiday, whoever, kids who have traveled, feeling that they've exposed themselves and then can't spend time over winter break with the people that they love. And so that's on my mind. I'm trying to weigh that with, kids feeling like they can get back sooner. I'm someone said the last meeting, happy teachers make happy students and successful students. And so, my mind is going to how do we best give those teachers the time and space that they need to figure out the support that they need, get set up, and frankly, just breathe a little bit without worrying about the health implications for themselves during the holidays. No comments or no questions, just sharing in the spirit of sharing.
Jason LaCroy?
I don't have anything new to add or comments to make about the plan particularly. I just think if the administration thinks that this timeline is enough to get properly prepared, I think if we, approve the plan, we should implement it as expeditiously as possible while still making sure it's enough time to do it well.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Strack?
Not really anything to add. I agree with what Jason just said, though.
Okay. All right, do a vote. Thank you, Sue.
Jim, wait, can you just summarize, are we voting we're not voting to move to January, we're just voting, can you repeat the motion, please?
We're voting to approve the transition schedule for the hybrid and remote learning plan that's in front of us.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
No.
Strack,
Aye.
Miller,
No.
Mack, Weedman,
Aye.
Nash.
No.
Okay, that was a 4-3 vote. So the motion did pass. Chris, can you grab me the public Simon, please?
And while we're waiting for that, I think we're also turning on the electronic public comment. So, yeah, it's on, so people can start submitting that.
Okay, first one is Ashley Mahoney.
Sorry about that. Good evening. I had a whole bunch of questions and things to talk about, but I've been a very loud voice, as I'm sure you have heard, and I hope that you have not in any way felt disrespected by any of my emails or comments. I've poured like my heart and soul into this for the past couple of weeks for myself, but also for the families that have been afraid to speak out because they don't feel like they agree with everyone else. And so I want to just say thank you for taking the time to really think about this over the past week. I think there was good questions that were brought up last week. And I really truly believe it should be about choice for everyone. And I think I heard that from almost every single one of you this evening. And so thank you. And I hope that this continues to go in a positive direction. I hope that we can continue this for our kids. For the teachers, it is going to be hard. Ms. Miller, you're not wrong. This is going to be a struggle. I am a teacher, and I am working longer hours and harder and more than I ever have in my 12 years of teaching. But it is what it is right now. I think that for so many, it's for the best. And so we have great teachers. And I think you will be surprised at how much they will rise to the occasion and help each other. And I don't want to say figure it out, but they are going to do their jobs and they're going to do them well. And so I hope that they feel the support from the community as they have felt over the past few months. Do have one question, and it could be because I was writing notes, but if we have to move backwards and then forwards and all of these things, how much heads up does that come with? Is it, oh, our numbers are bad, tomorrow we're home? So it just, that might be, I don't know if that's been addressed anywhere, and so that might be something that community working parents would like to hear. But again, thank you so much for doing this and giving everybody a choice, because there are people that want to be in school, and I know there are people that need to and want to be home. And so I think this really gives our community a level playing field for everybody. Thanks.
Nicola Case.
Hello. Thank you for explaining the in-classroom in more detail, because that was really concerning to me and to a lot of other people. Last week I spoke and I abruptly stopped because I felt like I couldn't speak my mind as I recently joined a committee within this Connections. But after careful consideration, I feel like I need to put on my mom hat and speak up on a couple points. My first point. And I think the Constitution is in my mind right now because my son is learning that in 7th grade. In the Illinois State Constitution, it states, "The state shall provide for an efficient system of high-quality public educational institutions and services." As part of the Board of Education Creed, you quote, "Accept the responsibility for your role in the quality education of every student in the school district." I would think you would agree, and parents would agree, that this is not high-quality education. No disrespect to the teachers. Anyone who knows me knows I am one of their greatest champions. They are trying their best, but it is in perfect arrangement to say the least. My second point, the Illinois State Board of Education has strongly encouraged a return to full in-person instruction in the fall as long as the region is in phase 4 of reopening. There are several nearby suburbs that have gone full in-person along with many private schools that have returned without incident. Why can't we do the same and maybe copy the best among their safety protocol? I feel that the hybrid is not the best decision for our children and community. My children need to be in school full-time in person. The socialization of our kids is vital, especially at a young age. Developing social skills is so fundamental for them later in life. This can't be measured in test scores. I'm not even going into the detrimental mental health effects this must be having on them. They need consistency and routine. Not waking up going, where do I go again today? That refers to my micro classroom. You've had the summer to start planning for different scenarios. If you don't have a game plan for full-time scenario, which I do not see any plans whatsoever, I would go into a room and hash it out. I feel we deserve to do better. I value teachers, and I know that they're working hard, and I don't see a plan. Like, we have this plan to go hybrid for 2 days a week, which I'll take. I'll take those 2 days, even though I really think that we should do in person. But I don't see your plan for what's the next phase? Like, I see these other schools that have their plans. If one kid gets sick, are you shutting down the whole school? Or are you shutting down just that one classroom? If 2 people get sick, what's the plan? I don't know. I've read this so many times. I don't see that. Am I missing that? No? Okay. I have a question that, is remote going to stay as vigorous as teachers are no longer staying with the group for the whole time? This is another question from somebody else.
Can you maybe rephrase that a little bit?
So is the teachers going to be teaching vigorously online as in classroom? Are they going to be teaching both? Like when the classroom needs to turn off their computers, how are those kids going to be learning online?
Okay, we don't typically answer questions during public comment, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, the question is, will the teachers be teaching as vigorously or robustly to the students that are remote as the students that are in the classroom? Absolutely. And, as Mr. Lewis was describing, there will be a variety of techniques that the teachers may use in order to be able to attend to the students in the classroom and the students who are remote. And again, I go back to, that's why we were starting this plan with all of the students being on the Google Meet, so that they are all getting that same level of attention from the teachers, with the idea that as time goes on, the teachers will become skilled at being able to tend to the students in front of them in a different way and the students online. Is there anything you want to add to that, Mr. Lewis? Okay.
And I just want to say thank you. I know that, Dr. Glitman, that you've worked very, very hard. I may not agree with how this plan is going, but I appreciate the time, and I'm sure it's tiring and a lot of work, and I bet you did not think that your summer was going to be like this. And so I may not agree, but I really appreciate what you're doing. For the board members, I've seen a different side of you guys this time opposed to last week, so I appreciate your openness, especially you, Miss Miller, that your vulnerability, like Christy said, was just so, it was good to hear that how our community and how you feel has really come together. Because I know, like, our micro classroom, if I didn't have these 4 moms, I don't know where I would be. Like, it's been like up and down, and remember when the first COVID, you can't touch your packages, you have to quarantine Amazon packages or wipe down your groceries and with Lysol. So it was really nice that you said those things. I think that was it. So thank you.
Thank you. Can you turn that mic off? Sorry. Good. I assume we have some online ones as well.
Yeah, we have a few. All right, the first one comes from Jennifer Kasmer, who says, will teachers be reimbursed for PPE items purchased for going back into the classroom, specifically wearing a face shield over a mask? Megan C. asks, will 5th grade Park Campus students have the option to keep the same teacher? You mentioned it was only K-4th grade that would have the opportunity to choose that in the survey. Daniel Fry asks, why wasn't the thought exchange used before the plan was put together for staff responses? Sorry, I can't see who this one's from in my sheet. One moment. This is from Mindy Phillips, who writes, good evening. Again, I'd like to extend my gratitude for all that you and the Board of Education are doing to try to get our students back to class. I feel it is important. I do have just a couple of questions regarding the revised plan. 1, each or most classrooms are set up with a whiteboard that projects the teacher's computer screen and sound. I'm wondering why the on-site students are having to use headphones rather than the teacher projecting her screen to the whiteboard for the on-site students. This would allow for a more natural on-site learning experience. And I feel kids on site to be more engaged watching the teacher in class versus trying to focus their Chromebook while listening to the teacher in front of them. For students who struggle with attention, that could be very overwhelming for them. 2, will there be an option for our special ed students to be on-site students for each day if their family chooses to? These kids are struggling and have an IEP 504 or SPED services for a reason. These kids struggle in a normal school year, and in the current situation, this is even more so for so many of them, my son being one of those kids. When I'm told that all the kids are struggling, and it's like saying we're all in the same boat, that's not true. COVID is the storm that we are all in together, but every child in their family is in their own boat with their own successes, struggles, and obstacles. Safety is the utmost importance in getting our kids back to school, but we need to look at what is best for each population of student and now best to bring them back in phases, and how best to bring them back in phases. When I'm told that all the kids are struggling, it's like saying we're all in the same boat. Oh, I just said that. Is there going to be an option that our IEP 504 kids have the option to have more on-site learning opportunity? Again, thank you for all that the district is doing for our kids. I appreciate you taking the time to read my email. I know you are busy. Sincerely, Mrs. Mindy Phillips, parent. The next one comes from Kimberly Peterson, who wrote, before you voted today, how many teacher classrooms did you observe? The next one comes from Stan A., who wrote, many teachers have not been able to express any of their concerns or needs. Who will prop them up and who will decide if they are equipped? Who will support them? Has this been happening? Will staff currently at SAFE centers take away from staffing needs at buildings? When will there be time for them to prepare if they are teaching all day? The next one is anonymous, and it says, I'm a teacher in D46. I know the board and administration have been questioned and bombarded with concerns and issues from staff. I feel like I need to speak up for the other side of the staff that has been quiet. I appreciate that all that our administration has done to meet the needs of kids and the staff, both personally and professionally. The countless emails, endless communication, and outpouring of love does not go unnoticed. Dr. Glickman has replied to each and every email that has come her way to ease our minds. I know many of you are worried about the teachers, and you have heard many say that they do not want to go back. Just know that there are many who are ready to tackle this next challenge and who want to go back. We want to see our students' eyes and hear their laugh in the classroom. Will this be different? Yes. Will this be hard? Yes. Will it be a ton of work? Yes. But I'm ready to take this all on. I know many others are as well. We will need encouragement, help, resources, and many supporters. But after listening to tonight's board meeting, I know we can all do this. The kids of D46 will come out better, happier, stronger. I am proud to be a part of this amazing district. The next comes from James Fry. The PFA program students, early childhood, appears to be going to be a less inclusive plan. Currently, those students are having synchronous lessons 4 and 5 days a week, while this plan has them only having synchronous lessons 1 day a week. I feel this will adversely affect, even more than currently, their social interaction skills and academic growth. Also in the plan, there is a plan for gowns, masks, and shields to be supplied daily. Is there any thought to how this will affect their emotional development? Thank you for your time. The next one is from Charles Brown, who wrote, how do you see socialization of students when they can't play together with shared items on the play equipment? Any ideas? The next one is Catherine Shores, who wrote, thank you for your thoughtful consideration of the vote tonight. My family looks forward to returning to on-site learning, and we appreciate having the choice to do so. The next one is from Karen Wiesner, who wrote, thank you for the dedication of all the board, committee members, Marcus and Aaron at GMS, and all of the work put into this plan and decision. However, I must share what this means for a teacher. I do not have a micro classroom. I do not have daycare. I teach every day with 3 differentiation groups for my math 7 classes, so they are not taught to the same level. I would like to say that my mental health will decline. My own children are not forced to go to school on their hybrid model. I have no choice. Additionally, I do not think the community does not understand that the students will be with their teacher for only 60 minutes. Other classes will be via Google still. I have no choice now but to see only 11 student faces. My son is forced to ride a bus 2 days a week for 50 minutes, ages 11 to 18. My own children will be home Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I will not. I do not have accessibility to the one daycare in Spring Grove. How am I going to be the excellent teacher as I am worrying about the safety of my own children? How will I take care of yours? I will do my job to the best of my ability. However, this is going to impact many more teachers and our own families than you know. And the last one is from J. Rob, who writes, why do teachers have to teach remotely and in person? Why can't there be remote teachers and in-person teachers? Why put this impossible task on these teachers? No amount of technology will help reach both groups of students. Oh, I skipped one, hold on. Oh, I skipped 2. 7 and 8, thank you. Okay, number 7, I think I did 8. Oh, there was another one. Okay, sorry. 7 is from Sue Kindred, who wrote, I wish the vote would have been after public comments. However, are all the schools opening or combining at one location? I'm concerned about the seats facing all one way in classrooms. It seems more social over Google Meets. They can see each other without masks, move around, and do much more, it would seem, from how classroom attendance has been described. And number 8 was Mindy Phillips, who wrote, I apologize for the second submission. I forgot to add in the comment in my original submission. Initially, we were given the option to have all on-site learning for our classes. This is an option that I do wish we were given again. My son needs the face-to-face education that this option would be provided. District 127 presented in their plan that some of the IEP students would be permitted on-site. Why is that not a full-time possibility for our IEP students? Is it a possibility that the on-site teachers would be able to teach the on-site students and remote teachers teach the remote students? Thank you again for your time. Is that it? That was it. And I do want to mention that we are in the process of creating an FAQ, which is frequently asked questions, as we all know. So there are questions that we have gotten many times, and those will be a part of the FAQ. Tomorrow, the survey will go to families, not the FAQ, but the FAQ will be going out on Friday. We're still working on it, and we have some, additional questions in tonight's public comment as well that need to be added.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to real quick state that I appreciate everybody, their comments tonight. Were all well thought out, there's a lot of thought that's going into these decisions, and nobody worked off the hip. So I appreciate everybody who spoke up tonight, and it's a hard decision. It was a hard decision to do, one way or the other. So I appreciate everybody's thoughts and working through this with the administration.
Dr. Glickman, can I ask, you're going to do the thought exchange for the teachers tomorrow, is that correct?
For the whole staff, yes.
For the whole, or I'm sorry, for the whole
Yeah.
staff? That's,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if it's possible to share any of those responses with the Community Engagement Committee so that we can consider them as we craft our response.
Yeah, well, it's really going to be a working document. The point of it is for us to figure out how we can best support our staff.
Okay.
So with that in mind, if there are pieces of it that, yeah, I mean, we can share that information with the committee, but that's the
Yeah.
purpose of it. So.
Okay, and to be clear, I'm not asking for support in anything that would be administrative. I'm asking for
Mhm.
support in things like the comment that we heard that some teachers don't have as much choice now, so that I'm just looking for ways that we can support them.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have a executive or a closed door meeting tonight, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.